Today we're going to take a tour across the AskAboutIreland.ie website. There's quite a bit of information here, and I'd encourage you to check About Us, the links. They have a little video on how to use some of the resources that they have here, but I'm going to focus specifically on Griffiths valuation. So this is their homepage, and if you come down here and click on Griffiths valuation, it will take you to the search page for that feature. Now, there are a number of different ways that you can find information here. Obviously, you can search by name. If you have an uncommon name like I do, and you were to search for Moody, one of the things that would happen is you would find out that they have absolutely nothing, no entries whatsoever for the name Moody. And what that actually points out is the fact that it is an exact search. So you need to be aware of that when you're searching for names. Now, if you have a very common name, that provides different types of issues, and important that you should know again the locality where your ancestors were. Even if I click on this include similar names, I still get no hits on Moody. Now, I could try a whole bunch of other spellings that I know that I found records on, but I happen to know already that the one that's in Griffiths valuation is Mughty. So if I search for that, even without a excuse me, without a location, because there's not very many, there's only 4 in Ireland, and they're all in County Longford. So this again is the name search area, and you can see they're all in Longford. This gives the parish, 3 of them in Shrule, 1 of them in Cashel, and again those are adjoining parishes. Now, one of the things that you want to do when you get to this page is you want to check the details. And that's just going to give you an overview of the information that's in the record. One of the things in particular, though, that you want to check is the printing date. So when was Griffiths done in County Longford? Now, Griffiths began around 1846, 1847 and went through 1864. And they started in the south in Cork and Waterford and moved north. So if your ancestors were from Cork, you'll probably find them in the 1848-49 time frame, so right in the middle of the famine. If your ancestors were from County Down or Antrim or Armagh, they're going to be much closer to 1864. But it's important to know that information because who are you looking for? Are you looking for your immigrant ancestor? Are you looking for his father or even perhaps his grandfather? Who would have been the person that had leases on property at the time that Griffiths was done in the place where your ancestors lived? So make sure that you do check that page. Now, going back to the previous page, under original page, this is going to give you the image of the actual page from Griffiths valuation. And these 3 will all give you those images. I always click on the largest one because it gives me the whole page view. And I can scroll in and out on this. So there's the entire page. If I want to get closer in, I can scroll in as well. And as you can see in the townland of Gortine-Clarine, down here in property number 16 is John Moody and Michael Moody. And I do know that these 2 are brothers. This is called a rundale when they're grouped together, bracketed together like this, meaning that everybody in that area or within that bracket is responsible for paying the total tax. Now, if, for example, someone couldn't make their portion of it, the other people within that rundale were required to make it up. So here we have, and sometimes they're related and sometimes they aren't, but you should look and see if you can figure that out. Their landlord was John Bond, and John had a house and land, and Michael had a house, office, and land. And office just refers to some other building that happened to be on the land. And you can see the total of those two pieces of property together were 30 acres. It was a fairly substantial holding. So that's what you'll find right here. And the things that you want to make sure that you check and you understand is particularly the identifier of where the property is. It's number 16. So from here, one of the things that I can do is go back to the previous page and I can check out a map. Where actually is that property located? And again, I've got map views. I'm going to click here for a map of the area, and sometimes it takes the system a little while to sort of pull that particular area together. You always hope that'll happen a little bit faster when you're waiting. But when you get to the map, you're going to see a rather small map of the area, and you're thinking, how can I possibly figure out where it is? So again, within this circle here, the property that you're actually looking for would be inside of this rectangle. And you can either enlarge the area here, or I just can use also the wheel on my mouse to sort of move me around that area. Now, even now, what you'll see, these are the Ordnance Survey maps from the 19th century. And so here in the larger type will be the names of the parishes. And then these are the outlines of the various townlands, and this little tiny writing in here would indicate the name of that particular townland. So how do I figure out where my ancestors were in this map? Now, it's always helpful if you know something about the general area and the area around there from either, your historical reading or looking at other maps. But one of the things that I really like about this website is the ability to move from the historical map to a modern map. So in order to find the place, I typically will move this slider over about halfway. And what I get now is an overlay of a modern map over top of the original Ordnance Survey maps. And so as I continue to scroll into this area, I can look for places that show up on the map that might be close to what I'm looking for. So, I can scroll around in this area, and let's see if I can find where I'm looking at. Let me come back out a little bit here and find, got like a little outside of the area, see if I can find, here's right the border of Longford and, okay, here, Shrule, this is the parish that I'm looking for. So I need to be up here, and I recognize the area de Rogue. That is a townland that another Moody lived in, and I know that the one that I'm looking for is near that town. This would be on the modern map, but if I scroll in here just a little bit closer, you can see here's the area that I was looking for, Gortine-Clairine. And so now here's the outline of that particular townland. And remember that within that townland, the area that I'm looking for, the property was number 16. And so as I look down here, here is property 16. So this is the place where John and Michael Moody had their property. Now, the little A and B that were on the Griffiths list indicate houses. So here are the A and B. So these are likely the houses that John and Michael lived in, and this was their property here. Now, it looks almost like this might be part of this property, but according to what's on Griffith, this is a bog and there was no house on that property. So I'm pretty sure that that's where the actual houses are. So that's one of the ways that that you can sort of figure out where your ancestors lived. Now, I love maps. I think they're so important. Remember, I said that I knew that one of the other actually these were three brothers, was actually in Derogue. And so he was on property 11, which is right here. So you can see this is probably less than 2 kilometers distance, especially if you were to just walk across the fields. So looking and seeing how the various people with the same surname might relate, when you can see them on the map, it's helpful. Now, the other thing, if we go all the way over to the very modern map, and what I did is I actually placed a pin here where the property was. Let me just come back a little bit farther here, and you can see here's property 16, and right here is where those two roads meet. So if you were going to go and visit the property, you could actually get directions by placing a pin and going to Google Maps and getting directions to take you right to the property. And as you can see in the blog, I actually grabbed a picture from Google Streets that showed looking from right from this corner off into the property. So if I go back to just the list from Griffiths and take a look at that again, another thing that I really want to point out here is a lot of people are confused by Griffiths. I hear, oh, there's so many people by the same name. How do I figure out which one is mine? Well, there's a couple of things that you need to understand. First of all, this is a tax list. It is not a census. And it would not have been uncommon at all for our ancestors to have multiple leases on land. And so, for example, here we have Patrick Garrity. We also have Patrick Garrity. I think if we come down here, here he is again, and here he is again. So he's actually listed here 3 times. But I can tell that they're all the same person because there's no what we call an ognomen after their name. So what's an ognomen? Well, an ognomen is really, it's a Latin word to mean second name. The rule for doing Griffiths for the evaluators that went out were that when there were two people living in the same townland that had the same name, they had to be identified differently. So here we have Bernard McGrath Jr., that's the ognomen, and Bernard McGrath Sr. Now, are they father and son? This really doesn't tell us other than this is an older and younger person, but the likelihood is that they probably are. So we know that these two Bernard McGraths are two different people, but that the Patrick Garritys here are all the same person because there's no ognomen after their name. And you'll notice, like in this case, he has land. Up here he has a house, and down here he actually there is actually a house here as well. So, there may have been a family member or someone else living in one of those houses, but we do know that that's the same person. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of an idea of how to use this website. I'd encourage you, if you're not familiar with Griffiths, to go back and take a look at some of the blogs that I've written that I go into a lot more detail on. I also have written a quick sheet on land and tax records in Ireland, which you can order off my website, off the store on my website, if it's something that you're interested in. I also will be lecturing at the Celtic Connections Conference, which actually starts this Friday and is going to go on. The lectures are going to be available until the 30th of September. And one of the lectures that I'm doing is on Griffiths valuation. So if you haven't registered for the Celtic Connections Conference, I'm sure you'll find it very valuable.